Good evening, candidates, residents, business owners, and friends. My name is Chris Matera, and I'm the Executive Director of the Basalt Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited that the Chamber is able to present this opportunity to you for you to get to know the candidates running for Town Council this year. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Ann Scott and the Basalt Regional Library for hosting us this evening. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors, Alpine Bank, Bank of Colorado, Community Banks of Colorado, Touchstone Business Advisors, and the Town of Basalt. It is through their generous support that we are able to have Grassroots TV live stream, record, and rebroadcast this event. The stream is available on the same website as Town Council meetings www.grassrootstv.org/town-of-basalt. At this time, we kindly ask that all electronic devices be turned off or set to vibrate, and that if you're utilizing Wi-Fi, that you turn it off so we can preserve the bandwidth for the live stream. A note to any of our viewers at home: if the stream freezes, please wait a moment and then just refresh your browser and the feed will catch back up. The final recording of this event will be available on the Grassroots TV website. It will also be broadcast on the Grassroots Community Network cable channel. And again, a big thank you to Grassroots TV. Tonight's format will include a brief introduction of the candidates, a series of questions from the Chamber, followed by audience questions. These questions have been both submitted in advance and hopefully will come from you tonight. The first 5 questions will be limited to 2 minutes, and all remaining questions will be limited to 1 minute in order to address as many issues as possible. For the candidates, there will be a 15-second warning, and then there will be a lovely sound from my cell phone when time has run out. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening, Kathy Markle. Kathy serves on the Basalt Chamber of Commerce and is a member of our executive committee. She's also the owner of Alpine Design and Planning, Inc. Kathy moderated the 2016 Candidate Forum, and we are fortunate to have her back again this year. Please welcome Kathy Markle.
Hi, I just want to make one amendment to what Chris said, which is that Charlie Spickert and I also both moderated last year, and we really loved it, but Charlie's schedule just had a little too tight of a conflict. So anyhow, it's up to me. No tomatoes. I would like to introduce to you our candidates for council tonight. These represent 5 out of the 6 candidates who are running for 3 council seats, correct? Todd Hartley is not here tonight. He coaches basketball, and the basketball team has a game. So, to my right, first here is Bernie Grauer, and Bernie is a 20-year resident of Basalt and a first-term council member seeking re-election. He retired from a career in corporate finance and investment. He served 7 years on the Town Planning Commission, the last 2 as the chairman. He also served as the vice president and treasurer for the Basalt Regional Library and on the Albany Charcoal Kilns Preservation Committee. To his right is Carol Hawk. Carol has been a resident of the Willits area of Basalt since 2000 and the Mid-Valley since 1992. She is running for town council to bring more communication, transparency, and efficiency to town government. She is focused on and listening to the needs of all Basalt residents and improving services to include public works, childcare, senior services, accessible housing, business promotion, and a Basalt connector shuttle. I think I should say at this point that these introductions were actually written by each of the candidates. So if it sounds like there's a little self-promotion and self-description, that's why. Well deserved. Bill Infante is next, sitting in the center. He has worked at home and abroad in the public and private sectors for 3 decades and has served our country as a U.S. diplomat and as a UN ambassador to Serbia. Serbia. Very, very different. He and his family settled in the Valley where both of his kids graduated from high school and where he and his wife own a Basalt business. Compared to many, he's new to the Valley, but he brings fresh perspective and decades of relevant experience to Basalt. Gary Tenenbaum lives in Elk Run with his wife Suzanne, son Jared, and dog Nola. He's been in Basalt since moving to the Valley 16 years ago, and he is the director of Pitkin County Open Space and Trails. He loves to play outdoors, especially skiing, biking, and hiking. Gary truly loves living in Basalt and feels very lucky to be able to give his time and experience in government to enhance the lives of citizens and businesses in the town. Ryan Slack has lived in Basalt for 11 years with his wife, Dr. Bonnie Abercrombie, and their 2 children, Hudson, who is 3, and Hazel, who is 1. He enjoys skiing, biking, hiking with his dogs, and tackling whatever house project his wife dreams up. He has been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for the past 8 months and is looking forward to serving the community as a council member. All right, so you now have little introductions, self-described from our candidates. So the candidates each have 2 minutes for their opening statements. We have Chris on the gong in the back here who will gong them if they run too long. And we did not establish an order ahead of time for opening statements, did we? So I would like to, let's just go from this end to the other end for this one. So Bernie will begin, Ryan will end.
Thank you. And thank everyone for coming out tonight and watching on TV. I would like to serve on the council again, continue the progress that we've made on trails of transportation and affordable housing, but especially complete development of the Pan and Fork Riverfront project. That project has gone stale for too many years. There's been too much of a stalemate, and I suggest various solutions for getting off the dime and moving on with the development. The development I propose or support is a compromise between a large hotel, massive structure, and minimal. I want something in between, some reasonable development on half the land, or about 1 acre toward the RMI building, and another acre of park for the city to acquire. I've spent a lot of time on council, and I prepare by reading all the written material in the council packet in full. The Aspen Times noted in an article about the town council candidates that I do my homework and come prepared to discuss the issues. I am prepared to sweat the details for the town. As a councilor, I'm proud to have been a team member of a highly functional group of citizen elected officials. The evidence of functionality is in the results that the council has produced by consensus over the past few years. Some of the examples of actual concrete benefits and achievements are the South Side Underpass, the 3 major affordable housing projects resulting in about 176 new affordable housing units, more than ever before. The other things would be the Rocky Mountain Institute, giving early childhood education a large cash grant, sodding and starting to develop the Pan and Fork Park, and approving residents and Willits Town Center. I believe that we can have an appropriate...
Oh, wait, I couldn't hear that. Sorry, did you have a 15-second warning? Yep. Okay. Did you practice?
That's okay.
Seconds over, but then, okay, we give it to him. All right, just make your final sentence, please. We'll have a little extension for it.
I believe that we can have appropriate levels of new, vibrant development while retaining our small-town character. I care about Basalt's future and making it continue to be a great place to live, balancing economic development and quality of life.
Hi, my name is Carol Hawk. I have been in Willits. I've been in the Willits area of Basalt now since 2000. I have 2 children that I've raised here, and I'm really concerned about our families. I'm concerned about communication in town. I'd like to work to improve communication between both ends of town. We have a very vibrant community from one end to the other, and I have lots of ideas of how we can increase that communication and bring our citizens into government and get them more involved and care more about what's going on. So I'm big into I guess family values, affordable housing, seniors, taking care of our seniors as our population ages, and just being able to, raise our family and grow old in our community and be taken care of. So that's really where I've come from, and I want to give a voice to everybody that doesn't have the time. I have the time now. Both my kids are off in college, and I'd like to make that commitment.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks to all of you for joining us, and thanks to Chris, Missy, and the Chamber for hosting the forum. Since I'm the new guy, I'll talk a little bit about why I'm running to give you guys an idea of where I'm coming from. I'm running because I believe very actively in public service. I spent 25 years with the government preaching the merits of citizen engagement and democracy building, and now is my opportunity to practice locally what I've been promoting globally. But we moved to Willits we moved to Basalt because we love Basalt. We love Willits. We love the people that we've met, that we've been befriended. And it's because of this community that I would like to serve. I spent 4 years listening, learning, watching, spending time at town council and county council meetings. And I think I have a pretty firm handle on many of the issues. I clearly don't have the decades of experience that many in the community and many on council have, but from what I've heard, from what citizens are telling me, they embrace a new perspective, and I think I'll bring that. I guess, finally, I think that I have something to contribute. I've done a little bit of graduate work in economics and environmental policy, and both of those are relevant to the challenges we'll be facing here in Basalt. In the early years, I worked in banking and finance, and I applied those skills to my work at national and global development. Before joining government, I worked with a bunch of environmental groups, working on river and basin issues, working to forge consensus in the Pacific Northwest. These are also skills that I will bring to my role as a member on town council. And finally, I guess I've worked with municipal governments in the past, working on municipal finance, working on municipal budgeting. I understand the fiduciary responsibility that we as council members have to our citizens, and I look forward to working with you, our community, to chart a course for the future. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Gary Tenenbaum. Currently on council, and why am I running again is I always feel like we never finish what we start. And there's a lot of things that the town has started over the last, 4 years. But even before that, I really feel my experience, I work for a government agency, I work with a ton of staff, and I have a lot of contacts between Eagle County, Pickens County, town of Basalt, and being able to bring that to continue the really positive, good work the town has done. I'm very positive about where Basalt is. I have a kid in the middle school right now, and Basalt has done something with their school system that few other communities have been able to do. The town invests in their schools, and we need to start looking at early child care. Early child care, it's been a really important thing to me over the last basically since I realized when I had a kid and childcare wasn't available, I was like, wow, we got to get involved in that. And finding ways to do that has been really rewarding and seeing what the town has done. Obviously, affordable housing will be another big issue, but the town has taken incredible steps to making it happen. And, you know, really, truly, I look forward to working with people across the spectrum. I think, you know, a lot of people think we're divided. I don't believe we're that divided. I talk to a ton of people in town, and it's not divided. People have differences of opinion, and we need to be able to discuss those civilly. So I really look forward to putting another 4 years in if you guys vote for me. So thanks, and turn it over to Ryan.
Hi, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Ryan Slack. As said before, I've lived in town for 11 years. I feel lucky enough to own a home here, as well as start my family here. The business I work for is based in Basalt, and we put maps up on chairlifts, not only in the Aspen Valley, but all across the state of Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, up in Canada and in France. And I feel very lucky that I can work for a business that is based here, but brings a product and service across the country and the world. I've been on P&Z for the last 8 months and have seen a small bit of how the government works. And I saw that all the decisions are made at the council level, and so I've thrown my hat in the ring. I don't have all the answers, but I'm a really good listener, and I'm looking forward to listening to all sides to help make the best decision for the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, candidates. Those were opening statements by our 5 candidates present this evening, running for 3 council seats available. And we'd like to start with some questions that have been generated by conversation among our chamber board. So these tend to be sort of chamber type questions. And the first one, we're going to give everyone an opportunity to answer the question, and they will receive 2 minutes to respond to the question. If they don't need to speak for 2 minutes, they will move on. So the question is this: many Basalt business owners work and own commercial property here. However, they are not eligible to vote in the town of Basalt. How do you plan to engage with the business community to ensure that its voice is being heard? Let's start with Ryan.
It's obviously very important to give these people a voice. I would make myself available not only for roundtables and lunches, but I also think it's very important for the Basalt P&Z to work with the Eagle County Planning Commission as well as the Pickens County Planning Commission to make sure we're all on the same page. And so that way, these groups working together as with a cohesive master plan that we're currently undertaking on P&Z will help to give Basalt business owners as well as Eagle County and Pickens business owners an idea of where we're headed as a valley, because we have to work together as a valley, because everything that happens in Basalt affects up and down valley as we're in the middle of the corridor.
Okay, Carol, how about you?
I thought about this, and I'd like to maybe look into putting together some kind of an economic council that has resources for our current business owners and that can help create more business, give opportunities to new business, startup businesses, and then have someone from that economic council be able to present to town council maybe once a month. So we have that communication piece. So we can hear from our business owners on a regular basis what's working for them, what ideas they have to bring to the town so that we can make them more successful.
Bernie?
I think Carol's idea is very good, and I have no problem copying it. So, but on another tack, you know, we have these work sessions which are informal council discussions. I think I would encourage the chamber to send representatives and for us to schedule on a periodic but regular basis actual work sessions on issues that the chamber feels is important, so that we could hash them out in a less formal than a actual council meeting session. I would be available personally, and I will note that the council has been supportive. I've supported this. We gave the chamber $50,000 a year for 3 years in addition to their tax collections, and we agreed to give half of the 2% lodging tax to the chamber for their own uses, and according to the finance manager, that's generated $37,000 of contribution in just a 6-month period for the chamber.
Bill?
Sure. Well, as a business owner, I certainly care that our voice is heard. Having worked with American chambers in a large number of countries, I've got some pretty specific ideas about the role that I'd love to see the chamber and the municipality play together. And again, I'll hearken to Carol's suggestion. I would love to see formation of a consultative council comprising a much larger number of municipal officials and chamber officials who would forge and advance a policy agenda. In speaking with the chamber, with Amanda, with Chris, the policy agenda right now is not as well articulated as I think it could be, dealing with issues of regulation, fiscal, tax policy. I'd love to see the chamber and the municipality work much more actively to cultivate an identity for Basalt that is knowledge-based, progressive, visionary in the Mid-Valley. What I hear recurrently in a variety of interactions is the notion that Basalt is a place where projects come to die. We need to change our mindset. The mindset of Basalt has got to be one that is progressive, forward-leaning, reaching out to like-minded and progressive enterprises that will bring knowledge and create value. And this means for-profit organizations, and it definitely means non-governmental organizations. We have AGCI, we have the Rocky Mountain Institute. There are other knowledge-based institutions that, sadly, I don't find that we capitalize on as much as we could. But I also think that the purpose of a consultative council will be to promote a consistency in the communication that we engage in with business. Many businesses have been discouraged by inconsistency, and hopefully more communication, greater cooperation will remove the inconsistency and promote more business.
And we'll finish with Gary.
Thanks. And this is an interesting question. When I saw it, my kid goes to Camp Chippewa, and Deb Morrison has said this to me numerous times about the fact that, why do we care? She doesn't live in the town. She can't vote. Why do we care? And I'm like, I kind of always challenge her to say, so how do we not care? What are we not doing? And so I do kind of look at it going, I feel that we have provided some funding to the chamber, but funding doesn't seem like it's enough. I mean, I'm not saying you have to ask for more, because we necessarily don't have more, but we got to find different ways to make that communication open between the two, because I've seen it on council now. We have talked to the developers in the community. We just had a great conversation with the Willits developer when they came in and basically say, to make our businesses work, we need this. And so the town deliberated and said, well, you know, if you want that, let's see if we can come to a compromise. And I thought we had a very good conversation between one of the largest developers in the Mid-Valley and the town to come up with a win-win for both. And so that's the type of communication I'd like to see going forward. And if there's more that needs to be done, let's get it through that chamber, because that's where the businesses are, and get it to communicate better with the town. I'm totally open to that, and I hope we can find a way to end that question. So, thanks.
Okay, our next question. We'd like to get an assessment of how you all feel about the council's actions over the past couple of years. You've all lived here at least a few years. And so we'd like to know, what are 2 positive things that you think the council has accomplished, 2 positive steps that the council has taken over the past couple of years, and how would you build on them? And since we have, let's see, I'm going to start with Carol on that.
Well, definitely one that Gary just mentioned, working with the Willits developer and being able to come together for the best case scenario for both the developer to be able to put forth a successful project and for the town to be able to capture some benefits. So I thought that was a real positive. Also, I think all the new affordable housing that's coming online is fantastic. I think that's another thing we need to continue to incorporate and bring more into our town in different kinds of projects in different kinds of areas. So those would be the two positives that I've seen come out of this current town council.
Thank you, Carol. I'd like to make one comment for all the speakers tonight. Our audiovisual team has asked that we try to speak directly into the top of the microphone. When you're speaking from here, they have to put so much gain on it that's why we're getting an echo and feedback. So do your best to, speak into the microphone. Thank you so much. All right, let's see. Gary, would you like to go next?
Sure. The positive steps the town council has taken in the past 2 years, the underpass is definitely one of the largest ones I see. It's an enormous positive for the town. It's the largest public infrastructure project this town has ever completed. It's pretty amazing to see how we were able to work together with different municipalities, with CDOT, with the community to come up with a really big solution to the issue at Basalt Avenue. And then, I think what we were working with the Willits development, trying to make that as successful as possible. The town making sure that it gets as much benefit out of that development as possible. These are positive steps that are going to pay dividends over the next, 10 to 15 to 20 years. And I think those are something that, you try to build upon. You keep going. Like, what other infrastructure do we need in this town? How do we make that happen? I think this community's shown that we can do it, and we just need to keep that momentum going.
Great. Ryan?
Two things that I found that this council did really well was reestablishing the cash reserves to 33%. I think that's very important to put Basalt on a firm financial footing. So I would continue to push for that. Another thing that they did really well was the development behind the high school with Habitat for Humanity. I think this is some would say a gold standard for employee housing. It's a public-private partnership, not only with the town of Basalt, Eagle County, as well as Habitat. It has some checks and balances to prevent abuse in the system, and I think that's the most important thing for any affordable housing that we're pushing forward, is that we can make sure that it isn't being abused or taken advantage of. As we know, housing employees is a very important thing for our valley.
How about Bill?
Sure. My perspective is the perspective that I have from the past 4 years. And 4 years ago, what I heard town council say was that they wanted to build affordable housing, they wanted to build childcare. And in the past 4 years, I've seen them do both, or at least initiate plans for both. The Habitat project probably being the foremost that I think is emblematic in a number of regards. It is a public-private partnership. It brought together 4 parties in a collaborative project that's going to serve a need that will provide housing for community members who are profoundly important to our town. These would be teachers and government employees. So I use that as one of the great successes. The others, I should say, are the commitment that the town's evidenced for the support of the arts and support for sustainable solutions. They've made money available to sustain the temporary, which we are attending in increasing numbers. We've gone to lectures, we've seen drama, we've seen the speakers. I think this is great, and I certainly hope the town will continue to support the arts and culture. But in the space of sustainability, they put money behind WeBikes. This is a great solution to environmental challenges we face and transportation challenges. So those would be the 3, tangible whatever sources of evidence for what the town has done. But I think the biggest part is they set a goal and they delivered on the goal. And I hope that we can continue to do that as we move into the master planning process, which is going to require a new strategy and articulation of our vision. And I look forward to working on that.
All right, that leaves Mr. Burney.
Thanks. Yes, I think the affordable housing has been a signal achievement, and I want to concentrate on the way we were able to achieve such stellar results in such a short time, and that was building partnerships with other nonprofits and developers and not simply extracting a demand for affordable housing for the right to develop. All of the big affordable housing projects, Roaring Fork Apartments, the teacher housing at Habitat for Humanity, and the 50 affordable units for rental at Willits, all have been partnerships. In 2 of those 3, the town contributed significant money, and really the third one, by giving assets we weren't using, we made the possibility of developing the Willits. So I want to concentrate on building those partnerships with other parties and not just demanding as an extraction affordable housing. I think the fiscal responsibility is extremely important as well. I served on the finance committee, and I was very insistent that we balance our budget and that we get back our financial reserves. And I'm proud to say, after a year of austerity, we're now in the best financial shape we've ever been in, and we have good cash reserves to tackle whatever problems we want to tackle.
All right, we're ready for our next question. Y'all breathing over there? In, out. Okay, good. So even though, as Bernie mentioned, the town coffers are balanced at this point, and there is actually evidence that there is a plan in place for budgets, we'd like to ask the candidates what they think the biggest financial challenges are going to be in the next few years for the town, and how you would plan to address those challenges. And let's see, Bernie's holding the mic, but I'm not going to let him go first. I'm going to pick Bill.
My experience with Basalt's budget is definitely from the perspective of an outsider, one who's attended council meetings, but I'm not privy to anything that is not in the public record. But having been privy to the public record, if we've got a $10 million budget, plus or minus, not including restricted funds, and if more or less half of that is derived from sales tax revenue, from Whole Foods, and from City Market, I think that should be the most petrifying reality that we face in the context of development up and down the valley. Sadly, we are not actively participating in the development of the tree farm with Ace Lane. And if Ace Lane, and I don't know Ace Lane, but if indeed he continues with the development that might include a wholesale food establishment, we run the potential risk of losing millions of dollars. And this has got to be a concern. We have got to begin anticipating for this eventuality, unless we can embrace the tree farm and find a way to cooperate and collaborate with them in ways that we haven't thus far. So on the fiscal side, again, we have an enormous responsibility to balance our budgets, to spend within our means, and to protect the fiduciary responsibility that we have to taxpayers. And this also goes to the Pan and Fork property. The city's invested about $2.1 million in the 2.3 acres. This is a stranded asset, and as taxpayers, as residents of Basalt, we should be asking how our money is serving our interests. Clearly not as a vacant parcel with black hoarding around it. I hope that we can develop the parcel and fulfill our obligation to taxpayers. Thanks.
Hey, Carol, I see you reaching for the mic.
Uh-oh, my own worst enemy. So I think Public Works is definitely something that I'm interested in. I recently found out that our existing facility was built long before we had a Willits. And we have a lot more parkland. We have a lot more need for Public Works, and I think they need a facility. So I find that is one of our biggest upcoming investments, is finding them a new home. And then clearly, I think the Pan and Fork is one of the biggest issues as far as bringing vibrancy to downtown. And if we were to lose some kind of revenue down in the Willits area, which I would hope not, that Old Town would be there to pick it up. And we need to start that ball rolling so that it's in place if anything like that ever happened.
Okay, let's see. Who's been at the bottom of the pile lately? I don't know. Bernie?
I take a somewhat different take on the tree farm. I don't think that project is at all helpful to Basalt. I think it's a pure detriment. I spoke up repeatedly against the excessive commercial and residential development at every public opportunity I had. It represents a direct threat to our investment in Willits. The council did reach out to the developer and invited him to bring the development through the Basalt process, and was open and inviting, and for whatever reasons, the developer refused that and took it through a very peculiar Eagle-based process in which the entire Mid-Valley P&Z recommended against the process, and the public spoke out 8-1 against it, and yet 2 of the commissioners overrode the public and the P&Z's view to approve it. So as far as a threat, that means to me we have to look to encourage development in the center circle of our town, which is the old Clark's Market. And since we have good fiscal stability, I would even look at developer incentives in that Clark Markets area to get something off and going to redevelop, because that is where density belongs, not on the river at the Pan and Fork. And as far as other fiscal items, we just have to watch our budget and be careful not to get into that deficit spending rut again, and we should be fine and able to carry out our projects as we want to in the future.
Okay, Ryan?
The fiscal challenges, I don't know any directly. As people have brought up, the tree farm is kind of a white elephant in the room. I think working together, as I said before, with the Eagle County planning as well as Pickens County planning to make sure that we're all on the same page, and so that there isn't district shopping where someone is comfortable to bring a development to Basalt. I think that's very important, that if someone's coming to develop a piece of land here, they're investing in our community. That doesn't mean I want to develop everything, but I think we do need to give them a fair shot and work with them to better support their ideas and present our ideas and come to a conclusion.
I'm just going to remind you all that the question is, what do you think the financial challenges are facing Basalt, and what would you choose to do about that? It's so easy for us to get derailed on the tree farm.
It's true, but honestly, one of the financial challenges is always sales tax. And how do you keep sales tax going in the town of Basalt? The biggest thing I saw was making sure Willits is successful. To me, that was a huge piece to make sure that they can finish that development and they have the appropriate mix of commercial and residential, and that they can get going, because honestly, diversifying some of the business and getting more business actually there would be hugely important. And then obviously addressing the zoning in downtown, and with a master plan, trying to find a way to encourage development through the zoning of the Basalt Center Circle and seeing what else we can do in town. But that is always taken with a grain of salt, because the fact is town government, you're seeing a lot more pressure on our services, and the services are for Public Works. And honestly, we're in a really good growth cycle, but that's not going to last forever. So we need to prepare for the next recession or downturn. And by preparing for that is to make sure that our public works facility can work for the future and work for the full size of what the town could be, and make sure that, as Bernie and I have been on council, trying to make sure that our financial, we're not doing deficit spending. We're not really allowed to do that, but even coming close to it and having enough reserves, because there will be a rainy day coming up. So, that's the answer.
Okay. Was that everyone? Did you all have a chance to answer that? Great. Thank you very much. One of the things that we learned from our last candidates forum 2 years ago was that the public really does have some burning questions, and we have tried to be equitable and conscious of differences in opinion and differences in fact, and but sometimes the hard questions need to be asked. And so our members asked us to ask a couple of hard questions. So, what process will you support for the development of the Pan and Fork River Park and the adjacent CDC property? And so just to clarify, in case people aren't sure, the Pan and Fork River Park has not so been named, correct? But the CDC parcel is the area that's adjacent to the street. At the corner is the one that is currently wrapped in erosion control fencing. And what we're calling the park is the portion that the town already owns that was sodded and irrigated last year and has direct access to the riverfront. So questions have been flying around the public and the council as to whether it is wise or appropriate for the town to try to purchase the remaining undeveloped land there and what they would do with it if they did. So this is actually, Chris, correct me, is this a question on the process, or is this a question on what is your vision? Both. Okay, so the question is, what process would you support for figuring out what to do with that land? And do you have a personal vision that you would like to share on that? So let's start with Ryan.
I encourage the development of not all of the park, but some of the park. I think buying it outright as the town goes against our financial stability. So I think we have to make some exceptions. I think density belongs in downtown. So once again, I don't think the whole thing needs to be developed, but I think for, stuff I've heard is people want a restaurant or, somewhere to hang out, watch their kids play. To get one of those facilities, you have to make some exceptions with some type of residential to afford the whole program. If the town was to buy any of the park, I think they could carve out 1 acre and then try to tap into Eagle County open space and Pickens County open space funds to regain the money that we spend as a town. But I am for smart growth there with some type of residential.
Thank you. Bernie.
I basically agree with what Ryan has said, that we need a compromise on the land with 1 acre of parkland, the city buying, but we need some commercial development to help pay for it, pay the expenses, ensure the vitality, and perhaps be able to afford a nonprofit like the Art Base to move in there. I certainly would support a beer garden on that, or other restaurant on that space would be very important to me. Now, as far as a process, I was the one who suggested the town buy the entire parcel outright and then sell off half for development. I'm taking that proposal off the table because there is a contract exists between a new development group headed by local developer Tim Belinsky and they have an option to buy the land. I would support following that official land use procedure and let Belinsky's group develop a proposal. My experience in negotiating with Tim on the Willits Town Center was he was responsive and flexible. Based on that, I feel optimistic he would be very aware of the council's concerns of some development, but not overdevelopment. I only suggested the purchase of the land as a way to get this thing off dead center. It's been landlocked there for how many years now? We need to move forward with it. My idea was only a short-term tactic to sell off half to a developer. Now we have a developer with a track record, and we have a new process, and I support that process to arrive at some land use approvals.
Bill?
Thanks. The folks that I've spoken with generally agree on several things, and this is where I'd agree with Gary. The town's not quite as divided as we want to represent that it is, or as I've heard that it is represented. Most people accept that a certain portion of the 2.3 acres will be dedicated to additional green space. Most people accept that there will be some constructed elements on the remaining 1.3 acres, and I accept that too. I think it makes sense. What those pieces, what those elements will be, is under discussion. I think some notion of retail makes a lot of sense. It'll generate sales tax. Some notion of a place for people to congregate, to enjoy a meal or drink, to observe the river, watch their kids playing, makes a lot of sense. I'm a big fan of the art base. If they find a home there, that would be great. If the chamber found a home there, that would be great. And we all have to, and it has to be paid for in some way or another. I myself was a fan of a boutique hotel, but speaking with developers, you can't make it pay for 50,000 or even 80,000 square feet. So that leaves us with few alternatives, but that might be residential. How these look, what they ultimately resemble, don't know, but I accept that there will be constructed elements on the Pan and Fork. How the process moves forward gets to my view on the role of government. The Pan and Fork parcel is private property. The role of government is to regulate, oversee, license, permit, guide, set the strategy, form the plan, and let the private sector develop it in a manner that they have proposed. We furthermore have stranded assets. Taxpayers have invested $2-point-something million in enhancing and improving the property, raising to grade, putting in electric and infrastructure. We should have an interest in seeing the property developed. The specifics remain to be determined, but I look forward to a plan.
Thank you. How about Gary?
Thanks, Bill. And because that's what I believe. I don't believe we're that divided, because I feel, for me personally, I have been pretty clear that I all along want to see approximately half of it be a park and half of it to be developed. It has to fit with the character of town for the development, and that's why I was against the low proposal. And I'm very much looking forward to, thank you, Bernie, for buttering Tim up. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing that process come through. It's an application process. That's what the town does, is we process applications, and we can see if we can work with this development group to see if we can come up with a solution. I believe that's the most fiscally responsible way for the town to move forward on this. And obviously through this process, I'd really like to see the community come in and, work with the town on it. Give us your opinions. I think the first development, that was one of the better public processes that happened. Yeah, it was controversial, but it was a debate, and it was a very passionate debate. And people say we're divided. I think we just had differences of opinion, and people were able to speak very civilly, for the most part, about it. And so I hope that civil dialogue can continue when we discuss the future development of this.
Just want to take a minute before Carol gets to wrap up this question. You've been given cards in the audience to write down questions. If you have a question that you would like to have asked of the candidates, please get those to Chris in the back of the room as soon as possible, because that's what we're moving on to next. And we don't guarantee that we will ask every question we receive, but we will make an intelligent selection to represent the broad base of questions I know we are receiving. All right, Carol, you've had the benefit of everyone's point of view. Now you go.
I think I agree with Bernie. I think the beer garden's brilliant. My only concern with the CDC parcel was when it was proposed that the town purchase it. I thought that was fiscally irresponsible. I do think a developer needs to come in and go through the process. I think a lot of what the holdup was is that the town wasn't signaling exactly what it was they wanted, and the zoning wasn't in place so that a developer coming in knew what was expected of them as to what they wanted to see on that parcel. But I think the vitality of downtown is dependent upon some kind of development, and I would love to see Moore Park. I think Moore Park would be beautiful. The river down there is beautiful, and we need to get more people out on the Pan and Fork as it exists now.
Thank you. Very good answers, everyone. So we're going to have a little seventh inning stretch, and everyone's going to watch. This is on TV. I'd like all the candidates to just stand up once. Thank you. Get the blood flowing. One more minute. Everybody do a circle, a little hokey pokey there. Okay, it's a good photo op, right? Okay. Oh, we've had a request for water, but I don't think water's included. If you're going to be a public official, you better get used to like not having water. I don't know. Do we have any like a pitcher we could fill water? No. The kitchen's locked. We can't get in. So okay. This is Missy Hagan. Mine's full. I could share, but I did spit in it. I did. All right. All right, now we'll sit them all. I'm good. Let's all. Do we want to do press first? Yeah, let's do press first. Why not? You guys ready? All right. We wanted to give our local press equally the opportunity to each ask a question. And the question will be geared toward all the candidates, and all the candidates will have 1 minute to answer. Who would like to go first? Scott? Or? You've been drafted. Okay. You tell me the question and I'll repeat it for the audio.
About ready to get your first hot shop open on Midland Avenue, probably in June. You're probably going to get another one in the next few months after that. There's starting to be talk about approaching the town about expanding the number of licenses in town. What are your opinions on the marijuana industry in Basalt? And the possibility of expanding the number of retail recreational.
Okay, I guess I should have given him the microphone. So to attempt to reiterate, you can probably better repeat yourself than I can repeat you.
Okay. You're about ready to get your first pot shop open in downtown Basalt, probably in June. Another one probably a few months after that. What are your feelings about Basalt having pot shops on Midland Avenue? And there's starting to be talk about people requesting that the town expand the number of licenses in town. Right now there's 2 recreational, 2 medical. So your opinions on the marijuana, the burgeoning marijuana industry in Basalt, the drug capital of the valley.
Give me that. Do we have a volunteer? Ryan volunteers.
As he stated, one's opening up in June, one maybe down the road. As at this point, I do not think we need to increase the amount of licenses, but I don't think that we should not have these shops. It's been passed by the state. It was passed in our town. I think the medical shop that's going to open on Midland is a good, will be good for the people that want to shop locally in Basalt. We talk about tax revenue. All of these shops produce tax revenue. So I think that's where we should let them play out and see how they go. And if we have higher demand, then maybe we open it up. But I think the 4 licenses we have now are good.
Barry?
I was on when council got the initial, thought about how many shops should we allow and all this. We heard from the public that take it slow. And so only allowing the amount we do now was appropriate. I feel, allowing them on Midland has been it's an interesting experiment, but business is business, it's sales tax. And this is one of those legal businesses in Colorado that we should embrace. I do not look for expanding the number right now by any means, and I think through this master planning process, we need to look at what we want to see in the downtown for all types of businesses, and marijuana will be one of them. But right now, I welcome that come in as a business owner, and we'll see how they go in the future.
Just want to reiterate that I forgot to introduce John Fahey. Our first question from the press was from John with the Aspen Daily News.
John, I don't know if 2 medical and 2 recreational is the right number or the wrong number. I would retreat as Gary did and say what we want is to promote vigor and vitality in the downtown. We need to have a strategy, we need to articulate our goals and define what kinds of businesses we want. If a medical marijuana, if a recreational marijuana outlet has a place, that's great. They are a business like any other. They are legal in Colorado, as Gary pointed out. I don't have a philosophic position, but I think we need to look at our strategy, look at our goals, identify the kinds of knowledge-based, ideas-based businesses that we want in town. The marijuana industry is probably among them. It's been a source of phenomenal revenue statewide and in other states beyond Colorado. But how the other businesses, how the other retail space is filled, that will be the product for our strategy that will hopefully advance through the planning process.
I think that what we have now is perfectly sufficient to start out. I know it was a long time in coming, so I think it'll be interesting to see how these businesses do. And I'm all for vitality, and I certainly wouldn't want to see a pot shop on every corner just for competition. But I think it's definitely a business that has arrived, and we'll see how it flourishes in Basalt.
Well, I voted to approve the 4 pot shops, so I obviously have no problem with that as a business in Basalt. I would want to take it slow and wait at least a year or 2 and see how it pans out before relooking. And then let's have another public conversation about how many and where before we dive into something new.
All right. Our next question goes to Scott Condon of the Aspen Times. Here, wait. Hold on.
Give the current council a letter grade between A and F for its performance over the last 2 years, and just a brief explanation of why you gave that grade.
Oops, Bernie, let's start at this end and go to the other end.
Of course, you're asking an existing member of council, but my unvarnished opinion is a B+ based on the facts of the number of projects and community activities that this council and the immediate preceding one have completed. And that takes functionality, it takes respecting citizen input, it takes consensus building on the council in order to come up with these agreements that let these projects go forward. And also, we've achieved fiscal stability in the face of all of these achievements. So those are the 2 reasons I give it a B+.
Okay, I guess I would probably go with a B-. I think that in the past 6 months, things have been much more positive than I've seen in the past year. My whole reason for getting involved in this race for town council is because I felt like the other end of town, known as Willits, wasn't getting its fair shake. And I started paying attention about 18 months ago, really paying attention and educating myself. And I think I've seen that change. I've seen a change. So I think I could give it a B-, and I have hope for the future.
I'd split the difference and give the town a solid B. I think the town and the town council have done a really good job in things that matter to me and things that they said they would do. They've built affordable housing. We're in the process of building daycare. We've supported the arts and culture. We're beginning to address sustainability in the form of the bike share and other environmental initiatives. I think that's all really great. What I'd love to see us do a little bit more of is identify Basalt as something other than a whistle stop en route to Aspen. We have our own identity, we have our own charms, heritage, we have our own environmental assets, and we need to really trumpet and celebrate those. And then I would love to see the town council embrace business a little bit more actively and aggressively than we do.
I give it a B+. I like Bernie's assessment of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 years has been pretty amazing. The prior council before that really set in motion things that this council is now doing. We have a new town manager. Well, he's not so new anymore, but we really are on a good path. I mean, the town overall is doing well, and I think this election will be different than the last one, and I'm really excited that how many people have chosen to run, and we're having a really civil debate up here, and all these people on this table care about Basalt, and that's a really great thing. So I was going to say A-, but B+ gives you room to grow.
I'll go with a C, actually.
All right, finally someone with realistic grading principles. We can't all have a B. Just kidding.
And I drop it to a C. I think the pan and fork, dragging our feet on that has been, it's a blight. I drive by it every day. And to see that piece of parcel with the millions we've invested for development just sit empty, and I know there's a lot of different things involved in that, but it is in our downtown, and it is very important part of our downtown to help create the vitality that people desire.
Okay. Thank you very much, candidates, for those answers. All right, now we have an opportunity to take some of the questions that our audience has written on note cards and passed back to Chris, and she has forwarded to me. I'm just going to kind of ask these in a random order. All right, the hot seat. Politicians often talk about how they support the business community. The chamber is our conduit and connection to that business community. The question is, are you a chamber member? And if not, why not? And let's start with Carol.
I am not a member. I am not a small business owner. But I do use the magazine to find things to do in town, and I do think it's a huge asset to the town. And I would love to see it, as I earlier mentioned, more involved with an economic council and bringing in new business and supporting existing businesses. So, yeah. Did that answer?
Gary?
I'm not a member. I work for government, so I don't own a large or small business in town. I really feel that, the chamber is, one of those organizations that has always worked with the town, and I think it's working better with the town even more recently. And, this cell phone little thing is that's a town businesses coming to the town of Basalt and saying, hey, we got a problem, we need to solve it, and we need help. And I was very impressed with how the chamber was able to, rally their people and their businesses to come up with, a unified and very strong statement of the community. And I hope that will go forward with, other projects as we move forward.
Ryan?
No, I'm not a member. I appreciate all the work they're doing. and I will actually look into becoming a member, as I do run a business that is based in Basalt. So.
Bill?
Yes, we are members of the Basalt Chamber, and before throwing my hat in the ring for the town council election, I had actually thrown my hat in the ring for the Basalt Chamber board. And again, I think I can probably do more if elected to support the business community from the perch of town council member than as a Basalt Chamber board member, although I welcome the board's advocacy. I would love to see an advocacy agenda. And to wit, the most recent letter that the chamber issued and the municipality issued to Verizon to provide greater connectivity kind of gets to the point of what I think the chamber should be doing and is doing. Namely, if we're promoting a knowledge-based, ideas-based economy, it's impossible to achieve that goal if you can't connect to the internet. So this is very timely.
No, I'm not a member, and I'm not a small business owner, but I think that the chamber represents a very important set of stakeholders. They represent the economic and, to some extent, the social vitality of our town. I think they do important work. I try and stay appraised of it through public information, and I have supported it by voting our tax money to support the chamber.
Okay, thank you. Our next question has to do with the role of the town council, the role of government. And I'm just going to kind of narrow it down. I've heard the candidates speak about, what the council wants to do, what the council's concerns are. And so I think people would like to know, what do you really perceive the role of the council is? And I'm gonna sort of break it down into three things. Do you think it's the council's role to lead the constituents? Do you think it's the council's role to follow what your constituents ask of you? Or do you think that it's your role to facilitate, I guess, in between the two? We've talked about roles of government being regulatory and overseeing and permits and things, but we also talk about guiding our social structure of the community. So, let's start with Carol.
So I guess the role of the town council, the way I view it, would be all of those. I think you need to lead when it's appropriate, and you need to facilitate. Most importantly for me is communicating with all the citizens. When I started doing some of my research and education for running for town council, and I pulled out the budget, and the first thing I noticed was at the top of the budget was the town council and the mayor. And in fact, when I started looking at other towns' budgets, everyone else had the citizens at the top. So that, for me, spoke volumes. And I really think we need to listen to our citizens, and we can effectively do all three of those things.
Bill?
After a good couple decades in government, I have a pretty firm view of what I think government should do. Government has the responsibility of charting the strategic framework and creating the laws, the regulations, the policies that permit social discourse, that permit business to grow and flourish, that help create jobs, that educate our kids. I don't think it is the role of government to own stuff, to speculate on development, or to engage in roles that are more appropriately reserved for the private sector. We have a role as town council to protect the fiduciary interests of our taxpayers. This means setting our budgets responsibly and spending within our means. We have the responsibility to coordinate with other governments up and down the valley, and this is a core principle that I would love to pursue if elected, the notion of intra and intergovernmental coordination.
Let's go to Ryan.
I believe, like Carol, there's a time to both follow and lead. For some stuff, it's the town council's job to set and development, what is appropriate on certain pieces of property. But I think it's also appropriate to listen and follow when someone has a good idea and take their good idea and cultivate it and grow it. So I think you can do a little bit of both, and I would like to have a proper balance.
Am I the last one?
No, I was going to make you last, though, but since you're holding the mic, you go.
Okay. Well, the role of government is, to me, where the government facilitates a strategic plan. It facilitates master plans. It facilitates that through leadership and also through discourse. And the discourse is to provide a forum for the public and the electorate to weigh in on those pieces. And so, I've seen it where, government tries to do public process and it gets all discombobulated into, factions and all this stuff. But that's part of being a representative democracy. There's different sides to every opinion. There's different sides to every issue. And we need to be there, listen, and then set the strategic plan based on, the vote of the people and who gets elected. And that's who is really going to be, the real, that really facilitates and fulfills that strategic plan that you create as a community.
Thank you. And Bernie, do you want to finish up?
Yeah, it's easy for me because I agree with everything everybody has said so far on the panel.
Yeah, but lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Well, first you start by listening and debating civilly with the public and among yourselves and coming to policy decisions. Then the leadership role steps in and the council defines the policy after proper public debate and debate among the council members. And then the council oversees the facilitation and the execution of these policies that are hopefully in the greatest public benefit.
Okay. We have a question now that is asking, do you think that Basalt is currently providing a strong, supportive, and attainable environment for young families? And if you do, tell us what we're doing, and if not, tell us what you would do differently. Go ahead, Bernie.
I think we're making a good start on it. I don't think we're there yet. Part of it is reasons beyond our control. We live in a rural resort community in which there's always going to be too many dollars chasing too little land. And that's something we didn't create, and we can't magically overcome these very fundamental economic challenges. We can help with affordable housing. We can help with development that includes small residences that are at least attainable. We can help by subsidizing and supporting early childhood services. And we can develop a more robust recreation department, which is one of my personal hobby horses. I would like to see the town of Basalt offer a lot more recreational opportunities for our youth.
Let's give that one to Ryan.
I agree with what Bernie said. It's, we're kind of trapped. We can't build our way out of the issue of making everything affordable for anyone that wants to live here. But we can work to make it more helpful for people to live here. I think childcare is a hugely important issue, especially for me. I know how hard it is to find childcare in the valley. There's wait lists at multiple facilities, and I was lucky enough to get on a wait list and get through it. So I think working with childcare providers to help offset some of their costs, as well as maybe cut some of the red tape that they have to go through to establish a new facility. I know a lot of that's on the state and county level, But I know as a town, there's stuff that we could do to help support that financially, as well as maybe lessen the tax burden on them.
Gary?
I think we have, as a town, we do a great job of supporting our young families. We have, a great school system. I think the town has supported the school system. The town has advocated for the school bond that provided affordable housing for teachers. It also provided a space at the Red Brick for childcare. And we, as a town, have supported childcare to affordability, as Ryan said, the availability, and then also the quality for early childcare. So we're supporting the young families. We need to do more. We need to find a sustainable funding source to continue with the affordable housing and early childcare, and that will be critically important going forward to continue it, because that will provide the diversity of our town and be able to attract young people to want to come live here.
Bill?
My perspective is that we probably can and should do a lot more. In speaking with parents of children in grammar school age, from what I gather, the grammar schools are really quite good. They're quite competent. They're providing education to our youth. Childcare is clearly in deficit. We need more early years childcare. And the high schools probably need more investment. I believe very firmly that investing in education is the greatest investment we can make. It is the education of our next generation of leaders and thinkers, and this is our future. But in order to welcome these families, we need jobs. We need well-paying, skills-based, knowledge-based jobs, and embracing that community of enterprises that will provide those jobs to young families is one of the approaches I would advocate.
Carol, you get the last word on this one.
Well, I would agree with everything that's been said on the board. I think it's a difficult one because it is financially based, and young families are getting their start. They can't exactly purchase a big expensive home and pay for a big expensive private school. And I think all the things that everyone's proposed is a great idea. I know one of the things we're doing as candidates is we're having a meet and greet that was suggested by a mother in Willits that's going to be in the morning so that they can drop their kids off at school and then come talk to us. And I'm interested to see what they have to say, and I'd love to engage that demographic in some way.
That leads right into our next question. That's fantastic, which is, so how do you encourage participation from the younger generation? And let's just do a little tally right here, right now. How many people in the room are between the ages of 25 and 30? Ouch. 1. How many people are between the ages of 30 and 40? 2. So Carol, why don't you continue on your thought there and tell us how we get the younger people to engage.
Well, again, I keep repeating myself, but I think listening. I think, this mother came to us and this is what she wanted us to do, and we've made ourselves all available so that we can do that. And I think that's really important. Somehow we have to find a way to engage with them. I know someone told me once, the tree lighting starts at 4:30, but if you work up in Aspen and you have to pick your kids up at school you can't make a Christmas tree lighting at 4:30. So I think we need to listen. That's really my big thing.
Okay. Bill?
Encouraging participation means encouraging more people to want to live and work here. And that means providing more means to make businesses want to live and work here. I think it's incongruous that we look at some of the enterprises that have established themselves in Carbondale, and I kind of wonder, why did the Timbers Resort base themselves in Carbondale? Why is Backbone in Carbondale? Why is Rock and Ice based somewhere other than Basalt? We need to make it more possible for businesses to establish themselves in Basalt and recruit a young, talented group of individuals who will live, work, and engage in our community here.
Ryan?
Just conversation. I mean, engaging my generation in what they want and what they want to see in the community. I feel like personally, my friends of my age group are all striving to get up to Aspen and live in their affordable housing. It's a hard challenge. It does make it affordable, but it's a good and bad. I think it pulls a lot of our knowledge base. So I don't know exactly how to engage my group. I mean, we're different, right? And I'm trying. That's why I'm here. So I'm trying to give a voice to the younger generation, and maybe me running will encourage other people to run and be involved.
Fabulous. Gary?
The hardest part is what we've seen, and I do it at work, is public process, is really trying to find different ways to participate than just coming to public meetings. We have to be able to find ways to solicit response, solicit feedback when you're not doing it at council meeting at 6 to 8 o'clock at night. I think we got to find a better way. I think the town has tried through surveys and others, but we've got to do a better job. And that was part of the reason why I went to a B+ instead of an A- on how council's doing, is because I don't see us pulling that younger model out there, younger age group into the conversation. And I hope to continue to do that over the next 4 years.
Let's hear from Bernie.
This is obviously a very perplexing question that governments all over the world are looking at. I don't know any easy answers. I'm going to hazard a suggestion that by encouraging the arts and cultural groups like art base and dance groups and music groups, that we get more young people interested in making Basalt a base. And I think that our sister city, Carbondale, has done a great job in really supporting and highlighting those cultural institutions. And right now, tonight, that's all I can come up with.
I think I have the answer. Beer. We have another question here, and we're going to start with Gary on this. And the question from our audience is, the community looks for transparency in government. What is the appropriate role of the executive session in the town council's process?
That's a great question. And the reality of an executive session, it should only be for legal reasons that are clearly stated in Colorado law. And I agree that, transparency says that you should try not to do any. There are certain circumstances where you have to protect, the legal standing of the town, and an executive session is to do that. But you should never hide behind an executive session. I think the town council has moved very far away, and we are only doing it when absolutely necessary to discuss a legal issue that is specifically either a lawsuit on the town, or it's a specific personnel issue, or it is a negotiation for private property, which is something that we under Scholar Escape law. But that's really it. We got to keep away from executive session. I think we've had our first one, and it was to discuss the personnel issue. And so, but other than that, you have to stay open in public session.
Ryan?
I agree with what Gary said. It needs to be used very selectively when Colorado law states it, when you are negotiating a personnel issue or hiring or purchasing a piece of land. But other than that, I believe that we should be, as a council, transparent as possible in the public eye, because we are here to serve the public.
Bernie?
I agree with Ryan and Gary. I will just say that council has made moves to be more transparent, or as transparent as they legally can be, in that we're making an effort when we notice what executive session, that we notice what is the purpose, and we spell it out as clearly as we can within the limits of the law. The other thing that we're trying to do is when we come out of executive session, let the public know sort of where we're heading or what's going on to the extent that we can do. And I think we have to be cognizant of limiting the executive session to as closely as absolutely necessary.
Carol? Yeah, I agree with all that. I think it was about a year and a half ago where we were having a lot of executive sessions. So I think that town council has definitely made a step in the right direction for that. And I think everything that isn't of a sensitive nature absolutely should be in public and transparent.
Bill?
I guess the notion of transparency and accountability are kind of the bedrock of what government is about. And as a government official, we were elected to serve at the will of the citizens. And that implies that you trust city council and your government officials to act on your behalf. And so while I certainly agree that we want to promote as much transparency as possible, I don't think that public fora are the only way. One of the things that I'd love to push for if elected would be the recruitment and hiring of a public information officer, someone who was charged with the task of disseminating information broadly to the public to obviate the need for multiple public sessions on issues that are either incidental or don't warrant the kind of public scrutiny. But this gets back to building trust. We need to build trust with the community. If the community trusts, they will accept that they have elected us to represent and execute their will.
I'd like to invite the press to thank each of you, Scott and John. If you'd like to ask one more question, I'll give you a couple minutes to frame it if you want to while we go on, and if you wave me off, so be it. This is actually, we were going to do just questions that all of you could answer, but we do have two incumbents here tonight, and the audience has asked Bernie and Gary each to answer. Looking back on your past term, is there anything you would have done differently? And what have you learned from any failures you may have experienced? Gary, you start.
Sure, that's a loaded question, but you know, the reality is failure is a strong term. There's a lot of things that happen in the course when you're the Monday morning quarterback. You go, I could have done that differently. I could have said something differently. And I think, you know, looking back over the last 4 years, I think there's some things with the pan and fork that I would have liked to do differently. I really believe that, you know, the community was really divided at a certain time, and we could have done a better job of trying to bring some type of consensus and some type of process to do it. I just think we got caught up in it. It's nice, it's easy to say now, but at that time, I think that is definitely one of the things that I feel that we could have done differently.
Yes, I would say we should have managed the pan and fork process a little more closely. And in particular, you know, I think it got very divisive. The formats were too conducive to conflict and not enough to resolution and building consensus. And that was a problem. And some significant part of the community felt left out from the very get-go, that not developing the pan and fork as other than a park was not even on the agenda or the radar of the public process. And that led to hard feeling. I think we got back on the right track when we appointed the Downtown Advisory Committee representing all range of viewpoints, and they came up with a very moderate solution, one which I still support, but that's my only regret.
Okay. We talked a little bit about your ideas for broadening our fund base for operations in the town and keeping our budget under control. And you all talked about expanding the sales tax base primarily. Now we would like to know, so what would you spend money on? Let's ask Bill.
Well, In terms of discretionary funding, I mean, after we've satisfied the needs of financing salaries and operations and all of the recurrent costs, I would hope that we would continue to entertain funding for the discretionary purposes that the town has invested in. And these would be the arts, nature, recreation, and other facilities that will help bring the community together. One of the themes that I'm campaigning on is a theme of community cohesion. And if we want a community to come together, we need to invest in the facilities that will bring them together. And this, whether this is events down on the Pan and Fork, whether it's new parks, new facilities elsewhere, those are the kinds of investments that I think create a community that is based upon neighborliness, that is based upon communication and cooperation.
I think your answer was beer,
Beer is a solution to many things, Kathy.
or maybe wine for those of us who are a little older. Okay. Let's see who wants to follow. How about Bernie?
I think I would increase our funding for early childhood education and affordable/attainable housing as the best way to get young families, working families, to become members of the community. I also would continue to invest appropriately in our public assets and public works because, let's face it, delivering the services to the public in a timely and efficient manner is one of the bedstones of our civic government.
Carol?
Well, I definitely agree with Bernie again. Childcare, I think, is huge, and I think we need to spend some money there. I would like to actually see some more employees in the town of Basalt. I've been looking at the budget. I'd like to continue to educate myself on the budget, but I remember in one of the budget planning meetings, they didn't want to hire a new employee for a department because then they'd have to pay a pension and all. And those are the people that I feel like invest in our town when we have employees that live and work in our town and they get rewarded for that. So I would like to see that looked at as well. And yeah, one of the other things I need to do is educate myself on the budget as to why our mill levy has doubled and our sales revenue has soared, but we're still pulling more money out of our property taxes. So.
Gary?
Do I get an unlimited budget?
You get that proverbial dollar.
Oh, the
and
dollars.
you have to divide it up.
I know. The reality is we should be investing in early childcare, our schools, and affordable housing is a critical component of what we need to do. But looking at the town, we run this town with a very lean staff. I mean, it is amazing what this town staff does for the few employees that the town actually has. So, we need to look at investing in our public works department with a new facility and, trying to make sure that do we have the appropriate amount of employees to really serve the whole town from Willits all the way through downtown and South Side and see how we can go, because discretionary funding is great, but we fought over it this year to get $75,000 for early child care. We need to find sustainable sources of that so we're not using all these things to compete.
I guess we're all on the same page on childcare, as well as supporting the town staff. I know Susan Phillips works really hard, and I think something that we could bring to the town is more events. I love the car show. I think it's amazing to shut down Midland and get everyone out and walking the streets of Basalt, and you can have a beer and talk with your neighbors. So I think having an event planner, if it's not full-time, part-time, to help bring more vitality to Basalt.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard Ryan volunteer for the Chamber's Event Committee. Missy Hagen's taking your phone number right now. All right, Scott, do you have another question you'd like to ask? Okay.
So the Aspinall Lodge and the old Clark space, the restore space, associated properties over there, that keeps on getting pointed to as where density is appropriate. Problem is there's multiple owners, and the Aspinall just sold for 4.2 million, so who knows what they're thinking. Do you think the council should be, the town government should be aggressively pursuing some type of redevelopment of that area? And got any great ideas of how to do that?
Who wants to go first? Ryan.
I do think that's an appropriate place for development, and I've asked this question many times on P&Z. It is a tough answer, or there is no good answer, but I don't know why we can't engage all the different owners and figure out what they want and try to come back with them with some aggressive zoning that makes sense for everyone involved. There's no easy answer, but that is the center of town, and we need something there. And so anything we can do as a council to encourage it, I support.
Let's hear from Bernie next.
Yes, I think it would be appropriate for the town to engage these owners and at least find out their concerns and if they're even at all interested in redeveloping their properties, because that is their call in the final analysis. I do think that the council should be willing to look into what's called tax increment financing, which is simply giving up some tax revenues for a set period of time, as an incentive for development, with the idea that you give up some current tax revenues or relatively short term, and you promote development and you promote tremendous economic activity that pays the town back even more over the long run.
Carol.
Yeah, I would agree with both Ryan and Bernie that it's, it is public land, but there's really no reason why we can't sit down with the people who own those pieces of property and work towards getting them to some kind of consensus to redevelop that area. I think it is appropriate for that area, and I think your tax idea is a great idea. So yeah.
I'm sure you meant to say private land.
Yeah, I'm sorry, did I say?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Bill?
I kind of have wondered, frankly, how we have proceeded with discussion of the development of the Pan and Fork in the absence of a comprehensive and coordinated plan for the simultaneous development of the Clark parcel or the business center parcel. It seems to me that developing one without the other still means you'll drive across the Midland Bridge and be looking at a parking lot and a gas station, when a lot of very viable proposals have evidently been conceived but not floated. So again, developing both comprehensively and in a coordinated way seems to make good sense, but I have to ask the question from a different perspective. Why haven't we reached out to these three individuals and presented them with a viable business plan? They're business people. They will understand a plan if it can make them money.
Yeah, this is a tough one that we always point to and say, that's where the development should go. However, the reality is, it is difficult. The town has reached out to the owners of those properties, and three different owners, as Scott mentioned, and this is a difficult task to take. I worry about tax increment financing because we didn't allow that in Willits. We didn't approve that in Willits, so why are we allowing it here? Is that fair? We need to have a bigger public communication and debate about that. But I believe it's zoned well, but if that's not the zoning that these owners want, and they want a different zoning, I am definitely open to looking at how do you make this work? Because we keep pointing to it, but we're not making it happen. So, hopefully that can come in over time. And I do agree, developing it comprehensively with the Pan and Fork makes sense. And so let's see how that conversation goes. Now that one sold, one is empty, economics kind of drive the next step.
Okay, John, did you have a question you'd like to ask again?
Why not?
All right.
Is anybody thirsty? Carol kind of touched on this a little bit. There's a perception in Willits that they give a lot more to the town than they get. I've heard rumblings over Cervezas and Willits. We should secede from Basalt. Now, Colorado makes that difficult. It's only been done a couple of times in state history. What are your thoughts about, would Willits think about seceding, becoming their own town, and why not?
Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go on that one. Thanks, John, for starting the secession wars of Basalt. But the reality is I just don't see it. I know a lot of people who live in Basalt, and no one really says that to me. Yeah, a lot of tax dollars do, and that's why I want to be really careful with how those tax dollars are spent. And I think, you know, coming up with a work plan and making sure that we're dealing with the issues that both areas have. You know, there's traffic calming issues in Willits that need to be addressed. There was a park issue in Willits that needed to be addressed. And, you know, we made the funds available to do that. So I think, honestly, making sure that we're listening in a collaborative way might stop those secession wars. So,
Carol.
Yeah, I've heard similar grumblings over cervezas or wine. I mean, I just don't think it's easily done. I don't think it's a reality. I don't think it's necessary. I think, like I said, in the past 6 to 12 months, town councils started to listen to us. We've gotten our playground, even though I still have homeowners upset about the fact that they had to put some money towards that playground on town land. I think we're moving in the right direction. So I don't see any validity to that.
Bernie.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion about the secession other than it doesn't seem like a very practical or beneficial idea, and I think the council is certainly aware of looking out for the whole town, including Willits, and I think we want Willits to be part of Basalt, and I think most people in Willits at the bottom of their hearts want to be part of our town. I will note that we gave substantial economic incentive benefit to the Elements Hotel, about $1 million worth of town assets and other considerations to make that development possible and really make the vitality of Willits pop even more.
Bill.
Right. I think we're at a point where we need a little bit of a mindset change, frankly. We are one Basalt. We are one town. We are Old Town, we are Willits, we are Elk Run, we are Aspen Junction, and we need to forge a collective identity that does not divide us in any way. It's not about the physical divide between the Willits community and the Old Town community. It's about the psychological divide that has not come together around a sense of purpose, around a sense of goal and mission, a strategy. And so I will hope that we will fulfill our town motto, which provides for an inclusive society, and that we provide for a more cohesive community.
All right, Ryan, you get to finish this one up.
Well, I would hope that the people in Willits would, if they have concerns and want to succeed, that they would bring them to council and make sure that their needs are being met. As Bill said, we are one Basalt. We appreciate their tax revenue, but there's a lot of services that they're provided also. So I think there's some give and take there, and we all need to work together so that we all have a better community.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to go to the candidates' closing statements. And gosh, did we go in order starting with Bernie when we gave you your openings? I think we did. So let's go back to that. Bernie, we'd like you to share your closing statement with us. Can you guys pass that mic down? Just Excuse me, and then we'll just continue on down the line.
I think I would like to see us continue in the good direction that I think we have achieved in the last 2 years, and that is executing a variety of public projects that help childhood education, help affordable housing, help economic development, and yet at the same time, keeping in mind our quality of life concerns and values of small town character. My number one goal remains to get the stalemate stopped on the Pan and Fork, get some forward movement. We have a new developer with a new option for the land and a new opportunity to negotiate what could be a win-win on that property if we're willing to make realistic compromises. So without going too farther afield, those are my primary concerns. Thank you.
So just one last follow-up. The whole reason that I'm also running for town council is because I heard those secession rumors, and it's like, that's ridiculous. We just need to be involved. So I've stepped up as a resident of Willits who wants to be involved and who wants to be able to be part of the process and bring that back to my community, even on the other end of town, because we are one Basalt and we should all be represented, and I think that has been lacking. So I hope to bring open-mindedness to town council. I hope to bridge any kind of gap or divide. I think everyone up here has been very civil and very open, and I think we all love our town, as Gary had said earlier. So I don't come to this position with an agenda. I really come with an open mind and a willingness to listen to all the stakeholders in Basalt.
Thank you. Well, I've talked a little bit about who I am and where I'm coming from, and I guess at the end of it all, we really love Basalt, and we love living here, we love working here, and I'd like to be engaged as a member of our town council. But it's also a place where we hope our children, after they finish college, will be able to return. And this means building the community that invites and embraces them. It means nurturing our next generation of leaders and thinkers. And so I hope, if elected, I'll have the opportunity to work with town council and with you, the citizens, to promote our charms and our heritage, to advance a knowledge-based and economically vibrant community that is cohesive and which shares a progressive vision for the future. So, thank you.
I too really do love Basalt. I moved here originally 16 years ago, and I moved right to Basalt, even though I knew I was going to work in Aspen, and I've really enjoyed living here. I've had a lot of fun being on council for the times that I've been on council. It's a lot of work, but it's a really, you can see how much time you spend, and it actually makes a difference. And it really is fun to work with the town staff who is so dedicated to this town. They love Basalt, and that's what I've been really excited to see. And so, you know, in closing, I think Basalt's going in a really great direction. I really do. I talk to people all the time, I mean, at schools and everything else, and people really love it. I mean, between the art base and the temporary and all the potential going, we just got to let some things go. We're going to have a lot of affordable housing that's coming online. Let's see how those citizens really engage in the town. And I think we can really do a great job of getting younger citizens to engage. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to spending more time doing this, and I really appreciate the time I've spent.
I just want to thank all of you for coming, and thank the Chamber for putting this on. Like everyone up here, I love Basalt, and you know, I think there's some areas that we could help with childcare and supporting education and figuring out the CDC parcel. But this is an amazing community, and this is why we all want to be here, and we all want to work towards a greater community that is inclusive and that we all want to live in, not only now but in the future. So thank you.
I'd just like to say thanks to all of our candidates this evening, and here are some final words from Chris Matera, the Executive Director of the Basalt Chamber.
I just want to put out one point of clarification based on something Bernie said. The chamber receives 1% of the lodging tax, so it's a 4% tax. We receive 1% of it, and is earmarked and restricted to be for tourism purposes. Just wanted to put that out there. So a little bit of housekeeping. Election day is on Tuesday, April 3rd. And according to Pam, you will receive your ballot by mail. Ballots will be mailed out between March 12th, which is Friday, and March 19th. Colorado has same-day voter registration that is available, but the last day to establish residency in Basalt is this Friday, March 12th. Be sure to check your registration or to check your registration or to register to vote. Yes? Oh, Monday, sorry. Monday. Monday, March 12th, sorry. Too many deadlines in my head. If you need to register to vote or you want to check your voter registration for accuracy, you can go to www.govotecolorado.com. Additional information can be attained on the town's website at basalt.net. You can click on the 2018 election information on the left side of the homepage. And if you have any questions about the 2018 election, you can email or call the town clerk, Pam Schilling, at pam.schilling@basalt.net or at 970-279-4381. I'd like to thank the Basalt Regional Library, our sponsors, Alpine Bank, Bank of Colorado, Community Banks of Colorado, Touchstone Business Advisors, and the town of Basalt. I'd also like to thank our candidates for being such good sports this evening, and for our audience, both here in the room and those who submitted questions earlier. Tonight's forum will be made available online at the Town of Basalt channel on Grassroots TV's website and rebroadcast on the Grassroots Community Network on cable channel 12 in Basalt and Aspen and channel 82 for those watching between Catherine Store and Glenwood Springs. Have a wonderful evening, and please remember to vote. Thank you.